She posted, "Know your worth, never settle," right after leaving me for someone else. I liked the post and said nothing. Months later, she deleted it after seeing my life improve while hers started falling apart slowly. "I just think you've become too comfortable." That was it. No argument before it. No warning. Just her sitting cross-legged on the couch we picked out together, phone face down on the cushion beside her, looking at me like I was furniture she'd finally decided to replace. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there in the kitchen doorway holding 2 mugs of coffee, hers with oat milk and 1 sugar, exactly the way she liked it, and felt something in my chest go very, very quiet. "Too comfortable," I repeated. Not a question, just the words sitting in the air between us. She nodded, slowly, like she'd rehearsed this part, like she'd been running this scene in her head for weeks and was finally getting to perform it. "I need someone who pushes me," she said. "Someone who has more drive." And there it was. Not a breakup. A verdict. I set the mugs down on the counter. Neither of us touched them. I didn't realize it then, but that was the last morning the apartment would ever feel like home. Here's what I want you to understand before I go further. This wasn't just a breakup. This was 3 years. 3 years of building something I genuinely believed in. 3 years of learning someone's rhythms. When she needed space, when she needed to be held, when the silence between us was comfortable, and when it was a warning. I knew this woman, or I thought I did. We had a lease together, a dog together, a ridiculous little golden retriever named Biscuit who slept between us and snored like a middle-aged man. We had a whole future mapped out on a kitchen whiteboard that still had vacation plans on it from 6 months ago. Cancun. We never went. I should have noticed that. I should have noticed a lot of things. But I was working. I was building. I was doing everything I thought a person was supposed to do when they loved someone. Quietly, consistently, without needing applause for it. And she had found someone who gave her applause. I just didn't know that yet. What I knew in that moment, standing in our kitchen with 2 cooling mugs of coffee, was that something irreversible had just happened. And the worst part? I still had no idea how deep it actually went. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I was 27. She was 26. We'd been together 3 years and 2 months. We lived in a mid-sized city, not New York, not LA, somewhere in between, in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 4th floor with a window that overlooked a parking garage and a slice of sky if you tilted your head right. That's all you need to know about the setting. Everything else is what matters. The honest truth is that the signs were there for maybe 4 months before that morning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to October. She started going to a new gym. Not a big deal. People change gyms. But this one was 40 minutes from our apartment when there was a perfectly fine one 6 blocks away. "The classes are better," she said. I didn't push it. Then came the new group of friends. Again, people make new friends. But these weren't people she brought home or talked about warmly. These were names dropped in passing. "Colton says. Colton did this thing at work. You'd find it boring. It's a whole work thing." I heard the name Colton maybe 9 times in 6 weeks. I never once asked who Colton was. That was my mistake. Not jealousy, not suspicion, just the quiet, dumb faith of someone who trusted the person they loved. In November, she started coming home later. Not dramatically late, just later. 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes 2. Always with an explanation that made sense on the surface. Traffic. Happy hour ran long. She lost track of time. Each excuse was individually reasonable. Together, they were a pattern I was choosing not to read. I told myself I wasn't the kind of guy who monitored his girlfriend. I told myself trust meant giving people room. I told myself a lot of things that December. And then came January, and she sat down on that couch and told me I'd become too comfortable. I want to tell you how the rest of that conversation went, because it matters. After she said the thing about drive, I sat down, not next to her, in the chair across from her. And I asked her one question. "Is there someone else?" She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. She said, "This isn't about someone else. This is about us." Classic deflection. I know that now. In the moment, I half believed it. Because I wanted to. Because the alternative, that she'd been carrying on something behind my back for months while I made her coffee every morning and walked Biscuit and paid half the rent and fixed the leaky kitchen faucet and thought we were building a life, was too ugly to sit with right then. So I let her have the answer. We talked for another hour. Or she talked. I mostly listened. She said things like, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore." She said things like, "You deserve someone who appreciates the things you offer." She said things like, "I just need to grow." Every sentence was carefully constructed. Every sentence sounded like something she'd practiced or had been told to say. I kept my voice steady the entire time. I'm not sure how. Some part of me had gone very mechanical, like a backup system that kicks in when the main one shuts down. By the time she was done, she'd made leaving sound almost generous. Like she was doing me a favor. Like I should be thanking her. And that's the detail that should have made me angry right then. But I was still in shock. So I just nodded. I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll start looking for a new place." And she actually looked surprised. Like she'd expected more of a fight. Like she'd prepared for begging and got quiet dignity instead and didn't quite know what to do with it. Good. I moved out within 3 weeks. Took my things. Took Biscuit. Yes, I kept the dog. She didn't fight me on it, which told me a lot about where her attention now was, and moved into a smaller place about 20 minutes away. It was a studio. Ground floor. It smelled like the previous tenant's cleaning products for the first 2 weeks. I painted one wall a deep green because I read somewhere that doing something physical to a new space helps your brain accept it as home. I was learning to sleep alone again. I was learning to cook for one again. I was learning to exist in silence that didn't have her in it. And then, on a Wednesday night about 11 days after I moved out, I was lying on my air mattress. Actual bed hadn't arrived yet, scrolling through my phone like you do when your brain won't turn off, and I saw it. Her post. Instagram. Posted 2 hours earlier. A photo of herself, laughing, dressed up, somewhere that looked like a rooftop bar. And the caption, "Know your worth, never settle." I read it twice. Then a third time. I sat up on that air mattress in the dark, and I felt something move through me that I didn't have a name for yet. It wasn't anger. It wasn't heartbreak. It was something colder. Something very, very clear. Because I understood what the post was saying. Not to her followers. To me. It was saying, I left because I knew my worth. It was saying, you were settling for me. It was saying, I upgraded, and this is me letting you know it was the right call. I stared at the post for a long time. Long enough that my phone screen went dark twice and I had to unlock it again. And then I did something that, looking back, was the single most powerful move of my entire year. I tapped the like button. That little heart turned red. And I put my phone down. No comment. No DM. No subtweet. No text to a friend asking, "Did you see this?" Just a like. And silence. I want to explain the psychology of that like. Because it wasn't petty. It wasn't passive-aggressive in the way people usually mean. It was something else. It was a message that said, I see you. I understand exactly what you're doing. And I have nothing to say about it. There's a kind of confidence in silence that people underestimate. Anyone can fire back. Anyone can write a paragraph. Anyone can subpost or subtweet or text their mutual friends. But to see something clearly insulting aimed at you, understand it for what it is, and respond with a single like and complete calm, that takes a level of security that she, at that moment, did not have. And she would know that. She would see that like. She would sit with it. She would wonder what it meant. She would wait for the next move. And there would be no next move. Just me. Living. 2 days after the post, I got a text from my friend Marcus. Marcus and I had been close since college. He knew Brooke. That's her name. By the way, Brooke. He knew her reasonably well, and he'd met a few of her work friends at a birthday thing the previous year. His text said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but that guy Colton from her job, they went public on Instagram today. Just so you're not blindsided." I put my phone on the kitchen counter. I went and poured myself a glass of water. Drank the whole thing standing at the sink. Then I picked up the phone and typed back, "Thanks for telling me." That was all. Marcus replied, "You good?" I thought about it for a moment. Then typed, "Yeah, I'm good." And the strange thing was, I kind of meant it. Not in the fake way people say they're fine when they're not. In the numb, processing way where you've already suspected the truth, and having it confirmed actually feels cleaner than the suspicion did. Colton. There he was. In her photos. Looking exactly like you'd imagine. The kind of guy who has expensive taste in gym equipment and slightly too much confidence about his opinions. Her caption on the couple photo was something like, "Finally. Finally." Like she'd been waiting. Like she'd been patient with something she didn't want. Biding her time until this was possible. Finally. I closed Instagram. I deleted the app off my phone that night. Not in a dramatic way. Just because I realized I didn't need to keep watching a story I wasn't part of anymore. Here's where I want to be honest about something. The first month was bad. Not falling apart bad. Not calling sick to work bad. But bad in the quiet, persistent way that's actually harder to explain to people. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and just lie there, thinking about specific memories. Not the big ones, not holidays or anniversaries, but the stupid small ones. The way she'd steal fries off my plate, even when she'd said she didn't want any. The way she'd call me from the grocery store to ask which pasta we were out of. The way Biscuit used to sleep on her side of the bed, and she'd push him off, and he'd just immediately climb back. Grief for a relationship isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a collection of small absences you keep bumping into. But somewhere around week 5, something shifted. I don't know if it was one thing, or just the slow accumulation of time doing what time does. But I woke up one morning, and instead of lying there thinking about her, I started thinking about myself. What did I actually want? Not from her. Not from a relationship. From my own life. And for the first time in a long time, that question felt exciting instead of exhausting. I want to walk you through what the next several months looked like. Not because I'm trying to do a glow-up montage, but because the details matter for what comes later. First thing I did was change my sleep schedule. I know that sounds small, but I'd been operating on bad sleep for about 2 years, the kind of chronically tired existence where you stop noticing how tired you are. And fixing that one thing changed everything downstream. Second thing, I finally had the conversation with my manager that I'd been putting off for 6 months. I'd been doing work above my pay grade at my job. I knew it. My manager knew it. I just hadn't pushed the issue because I was comfortable. Ironic word, I know. But I pushed the issue. I made the case. And 3 months after Brooke and I ended, I got a promotion and a salary increase that was significant enough that I'm not going to say the number because it'll sound like I'm bragging. But it was significant. Third thing, I started running. Not because of some self-improvement ideology, just because I needed somewhere to put the energy that used to go into the relationship. Running gave me that. Fourth thing, and this one matters most, I started planning. Not just abstractly planning my future in the vague way people mean when they say that. Actually planning. Financially, professionally, geographically. I had been wanting to relocate for 2 years. Different city, more opportunity, more energy. Brooke had always been resistant to it. She had her job, her friends, her roots here. I'd kept the idea filed away under someday. Now someday had nothing stopping it. I started having real conversations about a transfer within my company to their office in a city I'd always wanted to live in. By month 4, the transfer was approved. By month 5, I had an apartment lined up. By month 6, I was packing boxes. Around month 3, so 3 months after the breakup, Marcus told me something interesting. He'd run into one of Brooke's co-workers at a mutual friends thing. Not Colton, someone else from her office. And without Marcus even asking, this person had mentioned, in the way that people mention things they know are gossip but feel justified telling, that things between Brooke and Colton were more complicated than they looked on Instagram. Marcus had pressed gently. How so? And the co-worker had said something vague about Colton's situation. Apparently, there were financial complications nobody in the friend group had known about when Brooke had gotten involved. Something about business debts. Something about an investment that had gone sideways. Marcus texted me all of this and ended with, not saying anything. Just thought you should know. I read it. Thought about it. Typed. Thanks. Hope she's okay. And meant it. Sort of. I was human enough to feel a flicker of something sharp and small. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But I was also genuinely not invested in her suffering. I was just watching from a very large distance now. Like you watch weather patterns in a city you used to live in. You notice. You don't particularly need it to go a certain way. You're just aware. Months 4 through 6 were the quietest period. No contact between us. None. She hadn't texted. I hadn't texted. The only connection was Biscuit. Technically, since she'd helped pick him out, but she'd never once asked about him after I moved, which continued to tell me everything. I had moved into the rhythm of my new life. Smaller apartment, but smarter lease. More savings accumulating every month. A new city taking shape on the horizon. I'd started seeing someone. Casually, nothing serious. A woman named Petra who I'd met through a work event. Petra was sharp, funny, a little guarded in a way I found refreshing after years of performing emotional labor for someone who turned out to be planning her exit. We weren't a thing, but she reminded me that I was still a person who could be interesting to someone. That sounds small. It wasn't. My workouts were consistent now. My sleep was good. My savings account had a number in it that would have seemed impossible to me 18 months earlier. I wasn't loud about any of this. I wasn't posting. I wasn't performing recovery for an audience. I was just living it. And here's the thing about living something genuinely versus performing it. You don't need witnesses. You don't need the post to prove it happened. Month 6. I was 4 weeks away from my move date. Still had the old Instagram account. I'd reinstalled the app a few months back without any particular anxiety about it, which was itself a sign of how far I'd come. I wasn't checking her profile. I had genuinely stopped thinking about her daily. But I got a notification I wasn't expecting. She had started following me again. We'd unfollowed each other in the weeks after the breakup. Not dramatically, just the natural pruning of a shared digital life. So seeing that notification, Brooke started following you, was strange. Not alarming. Not exciting. Strange. Like noticing a light on in a house you thought was empty. I didn't follow back. Not out of spite. Just because I didn't feel the need to. My account was semi-private and I wasn't posting much. A few photos from runs, one of Biscuit being ridiculous, one of the city skyline I was about to leave. Nothing dramatic. Nothing targeted. Just a life. But apparently a life interesting enough to make her curious. 2 weeks before my move, Marcus called me. Not a text. An actual call. Which meant it was either important or he was bored and wanted to talk. I picked up. Hey, so, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to just receive it without doing anything. Okay, I said. Brooke and Colton broke up. I sat with that for a second. When, like, 2 weeks ago apparently. Word got around through the office. Okay, I said. There's more, Marcus said. Of course there is. She kind of got blindsided. I don't know all the details, but apparently he'd been seeing someone else at the same time. Like, another woman. Had been for a while. I didn't say anything for a moment. She didn't know? I asked. Apparently not. I exhaled slowly. I'm not happy about that, I said. And I meant it. Not because she was my person anymore, but because nobody deserves that. Regardless of what she did to get to where she was. Nobody deserves to be lied to like that. Marcus waited. You sure you're good? He asked. Yeah, I said. Moving in 2 weeks. Life is honestly pretty good, man. Yeah, he said. I can see that. It was a Tuesday, 3 weeks after my move to the new city. I was in my new apartment, 2nd floor this time, actual furniture, a kitchen with a window that got morning light, and I was scrolling through Instagram in that idle, half-awake way you do when you're letting your coffee cool. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't even fully paying attention. And then something caught my eye. A mutual follower, a girl named Kay who'd been friends with both of us, had liked a bunch of my new photos. Naturally, my brain did the thing where it checked who else had seen them. And I noticed something in her following list while I was there by accident. Brooke's profile. I clicked it. Not obsessively. Just following the thread the way your brain does. And her profile had changed. She'd made it private at some point. I could see her profile photo and her bio. But what I noticed was the post count. She had fewer posts than she used to. Not just the new couple photos that I assumed she'd deleted after the breakup. But more than that. Some older ones seemed to be gone. And then I thought about the post. Know your worth, never settle. I checked. Gone. Deleted. Sometime in the last several weeks, that post had been quietly removed. No announcement. No explanation. Just gone. Like it had never been there. I put my phone face down on the kitchen table. I looked out the window at my new street in my new city. A tram went by. Pigeons scattered. Someone was walking a very old, very slow basset hound past the building, and the dog stopped to sniff something of great importance on the pavement. I almost laughed. Not at her. Not in the cruel way. Just at the whole shape of it. Know your worth. She'd posted it as a declaration of self-knowledge. But self-knowledge is tested by what happens after the decision. And what had happened after the decision was, the person she'd chosen had been doing to her exactly what she claimed she'd never settle for. And the person she'd called too comfortable? He'd moved to a new city, got a promotion, was living in an apartment with morning light, had a dog who was currently chewing on a rope toy in the corner with great focus and satisfaction, and had nothing, absolutely nothing, to say about any of it. It came on a Saturday. I was at a farmer's market near my new apartment, holding a paper cup of coffee, letting Biscuit sniff every single stall at his own pace because we had nowhere to be, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. New area code. I almost didn't open it. But something made me. Hey, it's Brooke. Got a new number a while back. I hope you're doing okay. I saw you moved. That's a big change. Just wanted to say hi, I guess. I read it twice. Then I put my phone back in my pocket. Biscuit found something fascinating near a flower stall and pressed his nose into the grass for 30 seconds. I finished my coffee, and I thought about what to say. Not for dramatic effect. Not because I was playing games, but because I genuinely wasn't sure what was true that I could say. I didn't hate her. I didn't want to be cruel. I also didn't want to open a door I'd spent 6 months carefully closing. Because here's the thing about people who leave you for someone else and then circle back after it falls apart. They're not always calculating. Sometimes they're just lost. Sometimes they genuinely don't know what they want. Sometimes they reach out because the silence has gotten loud and they need to know the story isn't over. But the story was over. At least that version of it. I texted back. Hey, yeah, big change. Loving it though. Hope you're doing okay too. Clean. Warm enough. Closed. She replied about 20 minutes later. That's really good to hear. You seem like you're doing really well. It's been a rough few months for me. But that's a whole thing. Anyway, glad you're good. I read it. I didn't reply. Not because I was being cold, but because that's a whole thing was an open invitation for me to ask, and asking would have reopened something I'd already walked away from. I knew what the rough months were about. I didn't need to hear it from her. And more than that, she didn't need me to be the person she processed them with. That wasn't fair to either of us. I put my phone away and went to buy some basil from the stall ahead. Here's where I need to go back and tell you some things I learned later. Because at the time, I'd been walking around with an incomplete picture. And the complete picture changed how I understood my own story. About 5 months after the breakup, Marcus told me something he'd been sitting on. He'd found out, through a mutual friend who'd been closer to Brooke's circle than I realized, that Brooke and Colton's thing had started much earlier than January. About 4 months before she ended things with me. Which meant when she was going to that gym 40 minutes away. Which meant when she was coming home an hour late. Which meant when she was dropping his name in conversation like he was just a work contact. For months. That was how long she'd been navigating that situation while living with me. While I was making her coffee with oat milk and 1 sugar every morning. While I was fixing the kitchen faucet. While I was planning a vacation we were never going to take. I sat with that information for a while. It didn't break me, but it reorganized things. All those mornings I'd stood in the kitchen and thought we were okay. We weren't. She already knew the ending. She just hadn't told me yet. And the Know Your Worth / Never Settle post? That wasn't her celebrating liberation. That was her performing a narrative that justified a decision she'd already made. She needed it to be a story where she was brave. Where she was self-aware. Where leaving was wisdom and not betrayal. Because if she admitted what she'd actually done, carried on something behind my back for 4 months, and then left without ever owning it, there was no flattering story. There was just the truth. And the truth didn't fit a caption. I also learned, eventually, what the financial situation Marcus had vaguely mentioned was actually about. Colton had been presenting himself as successful. Not dishonestly exactly, but the picture was more complicated than it appeared. He'd had a run of genuinely good professional years in his mid-20s. Made some money, built a lifestyle around it, developed the confidence and spending habits of someone with means. But by the time Brooke got involved with him, the actual financial situation had quietly shifted. A failed venture. Some debts that hadn't been mentioned. The lifestyle was still going. The rooftop bars, the travel, the confident posture, but it was running on fumes and credit. And Brooke hadn't known. She'd seen the surface. She'd wanted the surface. She'd told herself this was a man with drive. A man who wasn't comfortable. A man who pushed. And he was those things. He was also lying about the foundation. So when the thing with the other woman came out, and it did come out, apparently quite dramatically, she was hit with 2 betrayals at once. The infidelity, and the revelation that the story she'd constructed to justify leaving me had been built on a misread. The upgrade hadn't been an upgrade. It had been a better performance. About 2 months after the farmer's market text, she messaged again. This time on Instagram. A DM. I saw it because I happened to check the app that morning. I don't even know why I'm doing this. But I saw your recent photos and you look really good. Happy. Your apartment looks amazing. I'm genuinely glad for you. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I want to say that I wasn't fair to you. I know that's probably too little too late. But I wanted you to know I know it. I read it a few times. And I want to be honest about this. I felt something. Not a pullback toward her. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet. But something softer than the clean coldness I'd been operating with. Because here's the thing. She was right that it was too little too late. But it was also real. I could feel the difference between that message and the Know Your Worth post. The post was performance. This was something else. Still self-serving, probably. People rarely reach out purely for the other person's benefit. But there was something in it that was genuine. I took a while to reply. Then typed. I appreciate you saying that. I really do. I hope things get easier for you. She replied. Thank you. Take care of yourself. And give Biscuit a scratch from me. I did actually. He was very confused by the scratch coming out of nowhere, but accepted it with dignity. At the 1-year mark from the breakup, I was sitting in my new city, in my morning light apartment, with Biscuit asleep on the couch beside me, coffee in hand. I'd just had my first performance review at the new office. It had gone better than well. My manager had used the phrase, "one of the most consistent performers we've brought in," which I almost wanted to screenshot and frame. Consistent. Consistent. Not flashy. Not performing. Consistent. I thought about the word. I thought about how I'd been told, in a carefully rehearsed breakup conversation, that I was too comfortable. And what I understood now, a full year out, was that comfortable and consistent are almost the same word, but the person saying it determines whether it's a criticism or a compliment. To someone who wanted drama and performance and the electric feeling of something uncertain, consistency feels like stagnation. To someone who actually understands what building something real requires, consistency is the whole point. She'd been chasing electric. I'd been building consistent. And a year later, I was sitting in morning light, and she was somewhere deleting posts. I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to turn this into a story about her failure and my victory. And it's not that. Or it's not only that. The truth is more complicated and more interesting. She wasn't a villain. She was a person who made a series of decisions that each made sense to her at the time and together added up to something she couldn't fully justify. She saw something she wanted. She told herself a story that made wanting it acceptable. She left without being honest about why. She performed liberation for her phone camera. And then the thing she'd wanted turned out to be built on sand. That's not a villain's story. That's a very human story. And I've been in situations where I chose wrong too. Where I told myself a story that made my choice look better than it was. The difference is just that in this particular story, I was the one who got left. Which meant I had no choice but to sit with the truth. I couldn't perform my way out of it. I couldn't post my way out of it. I had to actually move through it. And moving through it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. Not because she was terrible. Because I needed the disruption. I needed the forced restart. I'd been comfortable in the pejorative sense. Not growing, not pushing, just maintaining, and I needed something to break the inertia. She gave me that. Badly, and without honesty, and with a caption that was basically a pointed insult. But she gave it to me. Let me come back to the like. Because it's the detail that I think matters most in this whole story. When she posted, "Know your worth, never settle," she was sending a message. She was saying, I made the brave choice. I chose myself. You were what I was settling for. And I liked it. One tap. No words. I've thought a lot about what that like actually communicated. It said, I see you. It said, I'm not threatened. It said, I'm not going to give you the reaction you're expecting because I don't need to. It said, whatever you're doing over there, whatever story you're telling about this, I don't need to correct it. The best response to someone performing strength at your expense is to actually be strong. Not louder than them. Not cleverer. Just genuinely, quietly, undeniably strong. That like was a promise to myself, made in the dark on an air mattress in a studio that smelled like cleaning products. The promise was, I'm not going to fight for the narrative. I'm just going to live the life. And then I did. She deleted it at some point between month 7 and month 8 after the breakup. I don't know exactly when. I don't know if she deleted it because she saw my account and felt strange about it. I don't know if she deleted it because Colton had blown up by then and the post felt ironic in a way she couldn't sit with. I don't know if she deleted it because she just grew out of it. Probably all of those, in some combination. But here's what I do know. She posted it at a moment when she needed it to be true. She needed to believe that leaving was wisdom, that I was inadequate, that she was ascending. She needed that story to hold. And for a while, maybe it did. Rooftop bars and couple photos and a man who seemed to have everything. But the post couldn't survive the year. It couldn't survive the truth of what Colton was. It couldn't survive seeing me, the too comfortable, not enough drive, easy to leave person, genuinely thriving. Not performing thriving. Not posting thriving. Just actually, quietly, verifiably doing well. New city. New role. Better money. A dog who snored peacefully on a real couch in an apartment with morning light. The post had to go. Because the post was a statement about the world as she wished it were. And the world had declined to cooperate. There are things I kept from that relationship that I'm grateful for. This sounds strange maybe, but it's true. I kept Biscuit, obviously. I kept a habit she'd introduced me to, audiobooks during my morning walks. She was the one who'd first put a pair of headphones on me and handed me her phone with a book playing. I don't know why I kept that, but I still do it every morning. I kept, oddly, some of the growth. Not the growth that happened after she left, but growth that had happened because of being with someone for 3 years. You can't be close to another person for that long without it changing you. She made me better at some things. Communication, patience, paying attention to people's moods. Those skills didn't disappear when she did. They're still part of who I am. I kept the lesson, the hard one, the one that cost something. Which is this: the person who loves you quietly, consistently, without needing applause, is not the person to leave. Comfort is not the enemy of love. Comfort is what love is supposed to build. The enemy of love is dishonesty. The enemy of love is building a parallel story while pretending to still be in the shared one. The enemy of love is a performance that needs a post to make it real. 14 months after the breakup, my new city is starting to feel like mine now. I know which coffee shop has the best morning light. I know which running route takes me past the water and which one is better in winter. I know my neighbors by name. Biscuit has a whole network of dog friends in the park 2 blocks away. He treats these friendships with great seriousness. Work is good, not in the hustle culture way where you're supposed to say your job is your personality. Good in the functional, sustainable, this is going somewhere way. I'm earning more than I thought I'd be earning at this point. I'm saving more than I thought I'd be saving. I have something that feels like a plan, which is a thing I hadn't had in a while. Petra and I aren't seeing each other anymore. That ran its natural course. No drama, just a quiet ending that was mutual and clean. I'm not with anyone right now. I'm okay with that. Genuinely okay. Not pretending to be okay with it. Not performing contentment. Just actually comfortable, in the real sense of the word, with my own company and my own life and the direction things are pointing. And Brooke? Last I heard, through Marcus, who'd gotten this information secondhand, she'd left the company where she and Colton had worked. New job, different industry. I don't know if that was her choice or a forced one or a bit of both. I hope it's a good change. I genuinely hope she finds the version of her life that doesn't require a post to justify it. I hope she finds something real. I have no investment in her suffering. I never did. But I'll admit, honestly, without shame, that watching someone try to make their life look like a statement and then having to quietly retract the statement when the life didn't cooperate, that told me everything I needed to know about the difference between performing your worth and actually having it. I still have the Instagram notification somewhere in my phone, buried deep in the notification archive. The one from the night she posted the caption. I'll never look for it, but I know it's there. A little red heart. A like post that no longer exists. A moment where I could have fought the narrative and chose instead to just go live my life. That's the thing about silence. When it comes from a place of strength, it's not passive. It's the loudest thing in the room. She posted about knowing her worth. She deleted it because she'd seen mine, and I never had to say a single word. Some posts aren't deleted because people grow out of them. They're deleted because reality wrote a better caption.